Today we're looking at how to grow basil from seed, and you can grow it in the garden or you can grow it in containers. Either way, you plant the seeds in the same manner. There are lots of different types of basil. Genovese is the one that's most commonly used for pesto. Sweet basil is used a lot in salads. Thai basil has a spicy taste. And then of course there's lettuce leaf basil, which has larger leaves, however they don't have as much flavour. There's holy basil or Tulsi and a number of others. Today we're dealing with the Genovese and sweet basil types. The Genovese is the one that we really like for pesto, and we will have a recipe for making basic pesto at the end of the video. The first thing you need to do is to prepare the soil, because all basil really likes a rich soil. So we're digging in some pelletized, slow-release fertiliser and also a little blood and bone. This will give the basil the nitrogen in the soil that it needs to produce a really good crop. Simply mix this through the potting mix that you're using or the soil in the garden. The time to plant them will depend on your climate. In cool to temperate climates, you need to plant the basil in late spring to early summer once the weather warms up. In tropical to subtropical climates, you can grow basil almost year round, but avoid summer because basil doesn't like hot, humid weather. Although you can plant the seeds directly into the garden, we tend not to do that because we like to avoid the possibility of snails and slugs getting to the seedlings when they're really young, so we plant them in containers. We use fairly large, deep containers like this because they allow us to grow the basil on for a long period before we need to plant out, and therefore it's got a good strong root system. This also helps minimise transplant shock. The seeds are reasonably small, but you can plant a number of seeds, 7 or 8, in one container this size. And you don't need to separate the seedlings when you plant them out into a garden or into a larger pot. Tamp down the top of the soil in the container. Sprinkle the seeds over the top as evenly as you can. Water them in well. Sprinkle a light cover of soil over the top and water in again. The seedlings need to be kept in a warm position and they need to be kept moist. You should have germination within about 5 to 6 days. Here are our seedlings, about 6 days on, and here they are as they're developing, and once they get to this size, they're ready to plant out into the garden if you want to, into a larger container, or you can keep them growing in these containers and grow them indoors, and that's great if you've got a cooler climate. Indoors, you're going to need a warm position near a window, but not really hot sun right next to the window. When you're planting them out, simply squeeze around the pot, lift the basil out of the pot, and as you can see, this clump of basil has a really good root system. Simply dig a hole, plant it, repeat the process with other pots, and then water it in well using a liquid seaweed fertiliser. During the growing season, we like to water basil with a liquid seaweed and fish emulsion fertiliser every 2 weeks because this ensures really good leaf growth, and that's what you're after with basil. In cooler climates, or if you're wanting to start your basil off early or keep it growing for longer, you can use a cloche, which is like this. It's basically a cover or mini greenhouse that you put over the top of the basil, and that keeps the warmth in. You can see that this particular cloche has some vents in the top, which is great because it lets the humidity out. It also has some indentations in the top, which means that if it rains, the water collects in these indentations and drips down to water the plants. You can begin to harvest the basil as soon as the leaves reach a reasonable size. And it's simply a matter of snipping off or pinching out the leaves down to a node that's 1 or 2 above the surface. Now, here's that pesto recipe, and there are lots of variations on pesto recipes. However, this is the basic one that we use, and it works well for us. If you have any questions on growing basil from seeds, ask them in the comments on the video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel for regular updates on a whole range of gardening topics, and as always, good luck with your gardening.